My name is Madison Hayes, and 4 years ago, I walked away from New York with a single suitcase, twins on the way, and a letter that was never read. I disappeared from the life of the man who once promised me forever, and who also happened to be the father of my 3 children. I rebuilt everything from scratch in a sleepy southern town where no one knew my past. I thought I had sealed that chapter shut, until one unexpected afternoon, on my son's birthday, that very man walked back into our lives and looked our boys in the eye. Everything I ran from is now standing on my porch, this time asking to stay. Before I share my full story, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. And if you've ever done something for the sake of family, hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happens next. The afternoon sun filtered through the Spanish moss hanging from Savannah's ancient oaks as I buckled my youngest twins into their car seats. "Mommy, are we really going to the place with the big ice cream?" 4-year-old Ethan bounced in his seat, his enthusiasm infectious despite my exhaustion. "Yes, baby. It's Noah's birthday, remember?" I glanced at my 7-year-old, who sat quietly reading in the back, already so much like... I pushed the thought away. We'd managed 4 years without those comparisons. 4 years of peace in this sleepy Georgia town, far from the gleaming towers of Manhattan and the man who'd once promised me forever. The restaurant buzzed with Saturday afternoon families. I'd chosen this place specifically, local, unpretentious, the kind of spot where a single mom with 3 boys wouldn't draw stares. The hostess led us to a corner booth, and I was helping the twins with their menus when the air shifted. I felt him before I saw him. That electric awareness that had once made my skin hum now sent ice through my veins. Julian Grant stood frozen by the entrance, his perfectly tailored suit as out of place in this homey diner as a Rothko in a kindergarten classroom. Time contracted. His eyes, those storm gray eyes that had once mapped every inch of my soul, moved from me to Noah, then to the twins. I watched the calculation happen, saw the moment recognition struck like lightning. Ethan had his eyes. Both twins did. And Noah had his way of tilting his head when thinking. "Mommy, I want chicken fingers." Liam's voice shattered the spell. "Of course, sweetheart." My voice came out steady. A minor miracle. I focused on the menu, on my children, on anything but the man walking toward our table with the determined stride I remembered too well. "Madison." Just my name, but it carried 4 years of questions. I forced myself to meet his gaze. "Julian, you're far from home." I could say the same. His voice was rougher than I remembered, as if he'd been shouting at someone, or searching for someone. "May I?" He gestured to the empty space beside Noah. My son looked up from his book, curiosity brightening his features. I wanted to say no, to gather my boys and run, but Noah was already scooting over, making room. "Are you Mommy's friend?" Ethan asked, ketchup already decorating his chin despite not having food yet. Julian's Adam's apple bobbed. I used to be." "Cool, I'm Ethan, and this is Liam, and that's Noah. It's Noah's birthday. He's 7 now. Are you staying for cake?" I watched Julian process this information, saw him doing the math. 7 years old. We'd been together 8 years ago. His hands trembled slightly as he set them on the table. "I don't think..." I started. "Please." The word was barely a whisper, meant only for me. In it, I heard something I'd never heard from Julian Grant. The man who'd once told a boardroom of investors that please was just another word for weakness. "Just cake," I said, the words tasting like surrender. That night, after the boys were asleep, I sat on my porch swing, letting the humid Georgia air wrap around me like a blanket. My phone had been buzzing for hours. Julian, demanding answers I wasn't ready to give. "How could you not tell me? They're mine, aren't they?" "Madison, please." That word again. Please. From a man who'd once made his assistant reschedule our anniversary dinner 3 times because million-dollar deals don't wait for sentiment. I closed my eyes and let myself remember what I'd spent 4 years trying to forget. The pregnancy test had turned positive on a Tuesday. I'd retaken it 3 times, sitting on the cold marble floor of our Manhattan penthouse bathroom. Julian was in Singapore, or maybe Hong Kong. The cities had started blurring together, each trip lasting longer than the last. I'd been happy at first. Terrified, but happy. We'd talked about children in that abstract way couples do. Someday, when things slow down after the next acquisition. But life had made the decision for us. When Julian finally came home 10 days later, I'd prepared a special dinner. Candlelight, his favorite wine that I couldn't drink, and a gift box containing a tiny onesie that read Future CEO. He'd stared at it for 30 seconds that felt like 30 years. "The Westbrook deal closes next month," he'd finally said. "The timing. Madison, you understand, don't you? The investors are already skittish about my personal life affecting the company's stability." I understood, all right. I understood when his assistant Caroline started scheduling our conversations. I understood when he suggested I sign a temporary privacy agreement to prevent any leaks during the IPO process. I understood when he looked at my growing belly not with wonder, but with the same calculating expression he used for risk assessments. The breaking point came at 20 weeks. I'd felt the baby move for the first time, a flutter like butterfly wings, and called Julian immediately, desperate to share the moment. Caroline answered, "Mr. Grant is in a board meeting. Can I schedule a callback for next Thursday?" Next Thursday, to discuss our child's first movement. That night, I'd Googled how to disappear and found myself researching small southern towns where New York business news was as foreign as Sanskrit. Savannah had called to me with its slower pace, its reverence for history over profit margins. I'd left on a Wednesday morning while Julian was in Tokyo. A single suitcase, my grandmother's pearl necklace, and a letter explaining everything. I'd even sent it certified mail to his office, wanting proof that I'd tried. The porch swing creaked as I shifted, pulling me back to the present. My phone lit up again. I never got a letter. Madison, I swear I never knew. I stared at the words until they blurred. Of course he hadn't. Caroline had probably filed it under personal matter, non-urgent, and shredded it after the IPO succeeded. The twins' bedroom window glowed with their dinosaur nightlight. Noah's room was dark. He insisted he was too old for nightlights now. 3 beautiful boys who'd never known a father's arms, never wondered why other kids had someone else to call when mom was overwhelmed. Maybe that had been my greatest cruelty. Not to Julian, but to them. Sunday morning arrived with thunderclouds and the doorbell ringing at 7 a.m. The boys were still asleep, worn out from yesterday's birthday excitement. I knew who it was before I opened the door. Julian stood on my porch, rain-soaked despite the umbrella in his hand. Gone was yesterday's perfect suit. He wore jeans and a wrinkled button-down, looking more human than I'd seen him in years. "We need to talk," he said. "The boys are asleep. I know. I've been here since 5, waiting for a decent hour." He ran a hand through his wet hair. "Christ, Madison, 3 sons. I have 3 sons and I didn't know." I stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind me. "Keep your voice down. You stole them from me." The accusation hung between us like a blade. "I left you a letter, certified mail to your office, explaining everything. 23 pages of everything." My voice cracked. I waited 2 months for a response. "I never—" He stopped, something flickering across his face. "Caroline, you're guardian of this gate." I wrapped my arms around myself. "Did you know she once asked me to schedule my prenatal appointments around your fiscal quarters?" Julian sank onto the porch steps, head in his hands. "The IPO. She was supposed to minimize personal distractions during the IPO. I was a distraction? No, God, no." He looked up at me, and for the first time in years, I saw the man I'd fallen in love with. Lost. Human. Broken. "I've been in Savannah for 3 days. I hired a detective when you disappeared. He found you last week." 3 days? My stomach dropped. "You've been watching us?" "Not like that. I needed to understand. I saw you at the park with them. The way Noah reads during baseball practice. How the twins finish each other's sentences." His voice broke. "They're beautiful, Madison. You did that. You raised 3 beautiful boys." "Julian," I went to my lawyers yesterday. Dug through every piece of correspondence from that time. Caroline filtered everything. Every personal letter, every call. She had a file labeled Resolved Personal Matters. Your letter was in it, unopened. The porch swing creaked in the wind. Inside, I heard movement, the boys waking up. "What do you want?" I asked. "To know them. To try." He stood, facing me. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I chose wrong. I chose the deal, the company, the fucking IPO over you, over them. But Madison, please don't make them pay for my mistakes. Mommy? Noah's voice drifted through the screen door. Can we have pancakes? I looked between Julian and the door, torn between past and present. You can't just appear and disappear. If you're in, you're in. Birthday parties, stomach bugs, parent-teacher conferences, all of it. I'm in. They don't know about you. We'd have to go slow. Whatever you need. Noah appeared at the door, hair sticking up in 8 directions. He looked at Julian with those serious gray eyes. Are you staying for breakfast? Mommy makes really good pancakes. I waited for Julian to check his phone, to remember some urgent meeting. Instead, he smiled. A real smile, not his boardroom special. I'd love pancakes. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of awkward encounters and careful boundaries. Julian had rented a house 3 blocks away, close enough to be present, far enough to respect the life I'd built. He showed up every evening at 6, staying for dinner and bedtime stories before disappearing into the night. The boys accepted him with the easy adaptability of children. To them, he was simply Mr. Julian who likes dinosaurs and knows about buildings. But I saw the hunger in his eyes every time Ethan climbed onto his lap or Liam showed him a drawing. The crisis came on a Tuesday. I was at the grocery store when my phone rang. Noah's school. Mrs. Hayes? Noah fell from the monkey bars. We think his arm might be broken. I abandoned my half-full cart and sped to school, arriving to find my brave boy crying in the nurse's office, his left arm held at an unnatural angle. The emergency room was chaos. The twins clung to me while I filled out paperwork one-handed, Noah whimpering against my shoulder. I was drowning in forms and fear when a familiar voice cut through the noise. Madison, Julian stood in the doorway, slightly out of breath. The school called me. I'm listed as an emergency contact now, remember? I'd forgotten. He'd asked to be added last week, and I'd agreed in a moment of weakness. Here. He scooped up the twins, one in each arm. Let's find some chairs and maybe a vending machine. I bet they have those crackers you like, Liam. For the next 3 hours, he was everything I'd once dreamed he could be. He kept the twins entertained with elaborate stories about brave knights named Ethan and Liam. He held my hand when they took Noah for x-rays. He even remembered that Noah hated the smell of hospitals because it reminded him of when our neighbor's dog died. How do you know that? I asked as we waited for the orthopedist. He told me. Yesterday, when we were reading. He tells me things. Julian's voice was soft. Did you know he wants to be a marine biologist? That Ethan is scared of the vacuum cleaner but won't admit it? That Liam practices writing his name backward because he thinks it looks like a secret code? I stared at him. You've been paying attention. I've been trying to memorize them. Every detail. Every story. He paused. I have 8 years of missing to make up for. Noah emerged with a bright blue cast and a prescription for ice cream. As we walked to the parking lot, he slipped his good hand into Julian's. Mr. Julian, will you sign my cast? Of course, buddy. That night, after the boys were asleep, Julian and I sat on the porch steps sharing a bottle of wine. The first time we'd been alone together since he'd arrived. You were good today, I admitted. With them, with all of it. I've been practicing. Practicing? He smiled sheepishly. YouTube videos. How to talk to kids. What 7-year-olds like. Parenting twins for dummies. I laughed despite myself. Julian Grant watching parenting videos? I've changed, Madison. Or I'm trying to. He turned to me. I know I have no right to ask, but what happened to us? The million-dollar question. What do you say to the man who chose empire over family? I couldn't answer Julian that night. How do you explain 4 years of hurt in a single conversation? Instead, I told him we should focus on the boys. He accepted it with a grace that surprised me. But the universe has a way of forcing conversations. 2 days later, Julian showed up at dinner time with a manila folder and eyes red-rimmed from something other than allergies. Boys, why don't you watch cartoons while Mr. Julian and I talk? I suggested, recognizing the storm brewing in his expression. Once they were settled, he spread papers across my kitchen table. Emails, memos, a timeline in Caroline's efficient handwriting. I had my new assistant do some digging, he said. Look at this. The evidence was damning. Caroline had intercepted my letter, filing it as handled without ever showing Julian. But worse were her notes. Potential liability to IPO, suggest settlement post-launch if issue resurfaces. She thought you were after money, Julian said flatly. She convinced herself she was protecting me. Were you? I had to ask. Protected? He laughed bitterly. The IPO was a massive success. The company's worth billions now. And I spent every night in an empty penthouse, wondering why the only woman I ever loved vanished without a word. My hands shook as I read Caroline's clinical assessment of my pregnancy. Recommend monitoring situation, potential reputational risk manageable with proper narrative control. She knew, I whispered. This whole time she knew about the boys. She left the company last year, took a position in London. Julian's jaw clenched. I'm tempted to call her new employer. Don't, I pushed the papers away. It won't change anything. How can you be so calm? Because I've had 4 years to make peace with it. With my choices. I met his gaze. I could have fought harder. Could have shown up at your office, demanded you listen, but Julian, ask yourself, would it have mattered? During the IPO, would you have chosen us? The silence stretched between us, heavy with truth. I want to say yes, he finally admitted. But I was a different man then, obsessed, driven. I thought love meant providing, and providing meant building an empire. He gestured toward the living room where the boys' laughter drifted in. I've spent 3 weeks watching you with them. You provide everything. Not with money or power, but with presence. Patience. Pancakes at 7 a.m. and stories at bedtime. Julian, I'm selling my stake in the company. The words hung in the air like a challenge to gravity. What? Not all of it. Enough to step back to consult rather than lead. I've already started the process. He pulled another document from the folder. I want to be here, not visiting, not scheduling my sons between board meetings. Here. You can't just uproot your entire life. You did. His eyes bore into mine. You left everything for them. The least I can do is try to do the same. From the living room, Ethan called out, Mommy, Liam's being a dinosaur again. Normal. Chaos. Home. Think about it, Julian said, standing. I'm not asking for forgiveness or a second chance. I'm asking for the opportunity to be their father, however that looks. After he left, I found a note in the twins' handwriting on the folder. We lick Mr. Julian. He should stay. Even my babies were conspiring against my carefully constructed walls. November arrived with unexpected warmth, and with it, a version of Julian I'd never imagined. He'd kept his word about stepping back from the company, working remotely in the mornings while the boys were at school. By afternoon, he was always there. At pickup, at soccer practice, at the endless stream of childhood activities I'd once navigated alone. You don't have to come to every single thing, I told him one afternoon as we watched Noah's basketball practice. Yes, I do. He didn't elaborate, but I understood. He was cataloging moments, afraid they might disappear like morning mist. The real test came the week before Thanksgiving. I'd caught a stomach bug from the twins' school, the kind that left me unable to move more than 10 feet from the bathroom. Julian appeared at 7 a.m., took one look at my green-tinged face, and simply said, Go back to bed. I've got them. From my bedroom, I listened to the sounds of our morning routine filtered through Julian's uncertainty. Ethan's insistence that his socks didn't match. They did. Liam's meltdown over the wrong cereal bowl. Noah's quiet reminder that library books were due today. Mr. Julian? Noah's voice drifted up the stairs. Mom usually braids Ethan's hair on Thursdays. He says it keeps it out of his paint in art class. Braids, right? YouTube, don't fail me now. I must have dozed, because I woke to silence. The terrifying kind that usually meant someone had found the permanent markers. But when I crept downstairs, I found all 3 boys at the kitchen table, eating lunch and listening intently as Julian read from Charlotte's Web. Why are you reading that? Noah asked suddenly. Julian paused. It's a good book, but how did you know it's my favorite? Mom didn't tell you, I asked her. I held my breath, watching Julian navigate this minefield. He set the book down carefully. Noah, can I tell you something? Okay. I knew your mom a long time ago, before you were born. She used to tell me about all her favorite books and how she wanted to share them with her kids someday. He glanced at each boy. She told me Charlotte's Web would be first. Did you love her? Liam asked with a 4-year-old's directness. Yes. Do you still? Julian's eyes found mine across the room. I should have moved, announced my presence, but I stood frozen. Yes, he said quietly. Very much. Then why did you go away? Ethan chimed in. Because I was scared, Julian admitted. Sometimes grown-ups get scared and make bad choices. I thought being successful was more important than being present. I was wrong. Noah studied him with those serious eyes. Are you our dad? The question landed like a thunderclap. The twins looked between Julian and their older brother, processing this possibility. Yes, Julian said simply. I am. Oh, Noah picked up his sandwich. That's why we have the same eyes. And just like that, the truth was out. No fanfare, no drama, just a quiet acknowledgement over peanut butter sandwiches. That night, after Julian had tucked them in and left, Noah padded into my room. Mom, are you mad? I asked. I pulled him close. No, baby, I'm not mad. Good, because I think he's trying really hard. Maybe we should try too. From the mouths of babes, December arrived with the first snow Savannah had seen in years. The boys pressed their faces against the windows, marveling at the white dust coating our garden. Julian stood behind them, and I caught him taking photos with his phone, still documenting every moment. Can we go outside? Ethan bounced on his toes. Please, Daddy? The word still sent shockwaves through me every time. They'd been using it for 2 weeks now, casually, as if Julian had always been Daddy who made Saturday pancakes and knew which twin needed extra hugs on Monday mornings. We bundled them up and watched them attempt snow angels in the barely there accumulation. Julian and I stood on the porch, sharing a comfortable silence that would have been impossible 2 months ago. Madison, his voice was serious. We need to talk about custody. Legally, I mean. My chest tightened. Are you? No, God, no, I'm not trying to take them. He turned to face me. I want to make it official. That I'm their father, that I'm staying. Julian, I've already started the paperwork. Child support backdated to birth, college funds, health insurance, everything they should have had from the beginning. He pulled out a business card. This is my lawyer. Have yours call him. I want to do this right. I stared at the card. You could fight me for partial custody. Any court would grant it. I don't want to fight you. I want to support you. To be the partner I should have been 8 years ago. Partner? The word tasted dangerous. Co-parent, friend, whatever you're comfortable with. He paused. Madison, I'm not asking you to forgive me or take me back. I'm asking you to let me prove that people can change. That night, after the boys were asleep, I found myself Googling Julian's name for the first time in years. The business headlines told the story, Grant Industries CEO steps down. Julian Grant transitions to advisory role. Tech mogul relocates to Georgia. He'd given up everything he'd once valued more than us. A soft knock interrupted my search. Noah stood in the doorway, tears streaming down his face. Baby, what's wrong? I had a bad dream. He climbed into my lap. Daddy left again. He said he had a meeting and never came back. My heart shattered. Oh, sweetheart. Is he going to leave? When he gets bored of us? How do you promise a 7-year-old something you're not sure of yourself? Remember how scared you were to jump off the diving board last summer? I asked. He nodded. But you did it anyway. Why? Because you were there to catch me if I needed it. That's what we're doing with Daddy. We're being brave and jumping, hoping we won't need catching. But what if we do? Then I'll catch you. Always. He fell asleep in my arms and I carried him back to bed. In the hallway, I nearly collided with Julian. His eyes were red. You heard? He nodded. Madison, Show him. I interrupted. Don't tell me. Don't make promises. Show him. Show all of us. Every day, he vowed. For as long as you'll let me. Standing in that hallway. Snow falling outside. Our son's fears hanging between us. I made a choice. Not to forget or even forgive, but to try. Christmas Eve arrived with unexpected rain, washing away the last traces of our magical snow. But the boys didn't care. They were too busy helping Julian hang lights on the porch. I watched from the kitchen window, my hands wrapped around a mug of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. 4 months. 4 months since that afternoon in the restaurant when my carefully constructed world had tilted off its axis. Now Julian was lifting Ethan onto his shoulders to reach the highest hooks, while Noah read instructions with the seriousness of a NASA engineer. Daddy, it's crooked. Liam pointed out helpfully. That's the artistic effect, Julian replied, making them giggle. My phone buzzed. An email from my lawyer confirming the custody paperwork was finalized. Julian hadn't just added his name to their birth certificates. He'd established trusts, medical directives, everything, all giving me full decision-making power while ensuring the boys would always be provided for. Mom! Noah burst through the door. Come see, we made it look like the stars! Outside, the lights twinkled in the rain, creating a canopy of reflected light. Imperfect. Beautiful. Ours. What do you think? Julian asked, rain dripping from his hair. I think you're all going to catch pneumonia. But I was smiling, and he saw it. Later, after hot chocolate and warm baths, after 3 stories and 5 glasses of water, after the boys finally surrendered to sleep, Julian and I sat on the porch swing, watching the lights dance in the puddles. I have something for you, he said, pulling out an envelope. Inside was a single key. I bought the house, he explained. The one I've been renting. I close next week. Julian, I'm not presuming anything, but I want the boys to know I'm not going anywhere. That house is their second home. Our home, however you want to define that. I turned the key over in my hands. Do you ever regret it? Giving up the company, the penthouse, that whole life? Every night, he said, and my heart sank. I lie in bed and list every regret. Not seeing Noah's first steps, not being there when the twins were born, missing 4 years of bedtime stories and scraped knees and first days of school. That's not what I meant. I know what you meant. And no, I don't regret a single thing I've given up to be here. He shifted to face me. Madison, I spent 8 years building an empire. It took me 4 months to realize the only kingdom worth ruling fits in a queen-sized bed on Saturday mornings. The rain had stopped, leaving the air clean and full of possibility. I'm not ready, I admitted, to be us again. I don't know if I ever will be. I'm not asking you to be. He stood, preparing to leave as he did every night. But I'll be here, next door, every day, for as long as it takes. And if it takes forever? He smiled, the soft smile I'd seen him give the boys 100 times now. Then I'll be the luckiest man alive. Because forever with them, near you, is more than I deserve. After he left, I found a note on the kitchen counter in Noah's careful handwriting. Dear Santa, we already got what we wanted. Thank you. P.S. Maybe next year you could help Mommy be brave too. I stood in my kitchen, in my house, in my life that was no longer just mine, and felt the walls I'd built begin to crack. Not crumble, not yet, but crack enough to let a little light in. Outside, the Christmas lights continued their imperfect dance, reflecting in puddles and windows and maybe, just maybe, in the tears on my cheeks that felt suspiciously like hope.